Wait for it. Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here in the Blasters and Blaze podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans, a stabby chaos coordinator, and one chief shenanigator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let our guest, Miss Kacey Ezell, introduce herself to our listeners of yours at home.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kacey Ezell. I write emotionally charged adventure, fantasy, and science fiction. And I'm also a retired United States Air Force helicopter pilot. I also spent about a year flying EMS on the civilian side. So I love to talk about things that, spin around really fast in the sky.
So like we've got the air station near me, but we also have the Air Force Base. And so I was at a bar the other day with my friends because he was getting married, so it's kind of the bachelor party. And there was a helicopter pilot and a fixed wing pilot arguing about what spacecraft in the future are like, because they had just gotten done watching Enemy Mines, which is really fun. We just reviewed that movie, and they were arguing whether it would be flying a spaceship in space would be more like flying a helicopter or flying a spaceship. And they were going back and forth with like absolute conviction that they were the only one that was right. It was hilarious. I just sat back and watched.
Yeah.
You should have started recording for the show.
I know, right? I'd be interested to know what
someone you got to get releases, or people will sue you. So
Yeah.
Although I do think the people that make the argument with the way space is that the helicopter is probably more accurate because you got more dimensions to worry about. So like hand and feet matter when it comes to like piloting. That actually makes a lot of sense to me as far as it goes.
Yeah. So it's all relative, right? It's like, okay, well, what are you moving relative to? If you're moving relative to something that is moving at the same speed and orientation as you are, then it's essentially a hover, right? Which is something, I mean, that's a sort of a gross oversimplification, but there are parallels there between, helicopter flight. But if you're moving relative to something that is not moving as fast as you, it's more about the differential. You know what I mean?
My thinking was that the idea that, jet engine is just two engines in the back, right? Whereas I'm thinking spacecraft is going to, much like a ship has multiple thrusters, so you can sideways dock and whatnot.
Right, you can move in different,
Right, a spaceship is going to similar, in which case you're going to need multiple controls. And so the skills pilots of a helicopter have using your feet and your hands at the same time to drive versus just using a throttle is probably more on par, in my thinking, with controlling multiple engines at once.
Maybe, but not necessarily controlling multiple engines at once, because for example, the B-52 has 8 engines. So
right.
That's but potentially multiple movement vectors.
Yes, that's what I was trying to say, but not as cool as you.
But that varies. Like, I have a hard time imagining that the control interface for a multi-vector spacecraft is going to look anything at all like our helicopter interfaces, control interfaces of the collective and the cyclic and the pedals, because those are so analog, And any kind of craft that's going to have that kind of technology is going to have a really sophisticated sort of flight computer type situation that is going to be doing a lot of those calculations and stuff. So, so maybe, I don't know.
It was fun to watch. So, I mean, I just ate my pretzels and drank my beer, and I listened and I smiled and nodded because it was hilarious.
Oh, I bet it was a cool discussion. I should show off this cup that I got.
Oh, nice.
Chamois. So for those of you who are listening, it's a double-walled tumbler. It says "Real pilots don't need runways," and it's got a picture of a helicopter hovering over the peak of a mountain. Chamois Stovall gave me this for Christmas. So
she's pretty cool. I accidentally used one of her arts for our Men's Romance panel. And I thought it was because Tumblr, it was on Tumblr and it was listed in the Creative Commons. And she's like, yeah, I never gave them permission, but you can use it, which was kind of cool. But I'm like, oh, I know that name. She has some fun comics.
She's awesome. I love her. She's
We
an
actually-
incredibly talented author and
We have her
artist.
coming on later this
I'm
year.
excited.
To
talk about One Fifth Dragon?
She didn't pick the book yet. She said she wanted to think about it, but we're
okay.
recording it in April. Because when we do book interviews, I kind of let them pick.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
It's
so
whatever
exciting.
she wants to pimp out. But
yeah,
I just thought it was cool because I knew that name because I accidentally used her art. We go out of our way to not like to use art that's in the Creative Commons. Because like if I want people to respect my copyright, I kind of have to respect someone else's, right?
Sure,
and so when we mess up, it's like, oh, that sticks out.
Yeah. No, she's very cool. That comic of hers about men's romance versus women's romance is it generated a lot of buzz when she initially posted it.
I laughed hysterically. So I'm whatever works, and I don't think. I think it targets a very narrow section of the women's romance. I don't think.
Sure. Specifically, it's targeting like dark romance, right?
Right. The kind of stuff they're talking about on TikTok.
Right. Yeah. And elsewhere, but yeah.
Well, I just think, a lot of the romance stuff went to TikTok because YouTube kicked a lot of people off because they determined that Manchest was illicit material, and they found reasons to slowly kick all the booktubers off of YouTube. So that's why there's so many book types on BitChute, Rumble, and TikTok. Is because for a while YouTube didn't want them, and then they started bleeding numbers. Like, no, wait, come back,
BookTube, come back. Yeah.
So strange how that works.
Yeah, it is.
And then you want them back, and then
it is indeed. We actually might have to do a panel on that, Jana, about what piloting in the future might look like. It could be a fun one to do, I think, just to get nerdy with a bunch of people.
We would need experts because my sole experience is that I sit in the back of a plane, and I'm very grateful for the people that know what they're doing.
So I have, just as my credentials, I have been to the Hampton Air and Space Museum, and they have a little thing where you can do a, what do they call it? A simulator flight of the shuttle. In my family, we had a contest, and whoever landed the safest got to pick where we went to dinner because it's far enough we weren't, driving home. And since everyone crashed, we just determined whoever crashed closest to the runway won. And my youngest won that one because I crashed in the lake in front of the Langley runway, or no, in front of the Florida one, whatever that NASA base in Florida is. But Cape Canaveral, is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I kept crashing in the water, and he crashed on the runway, so he kind of won that one. But
okay.
Oh my!
I have also crashed the moon lander, so there's that too. So I mean, I'm an expert at this point. And creative landings.
And you are an expert at something.
Yeah.
All right. So we have to do this because this is the Blast and Blaze podcast. So we do have the religion questions. But since you've been on so frequently, we're going to mix it up a little bit. Are you ready?
Okay. Yes.
All right. What is the last book you read?
So speaking of dark romance, the last book I read was it's actually an omnibus. It's a series of, it's a trilogy. It's a dark reverse harem trilogy called The Guild. The first book is called Honey Trap, and the second book is called Kill Order. And so I've finished Kill Order, and now I'm on the third, which the title I can't remember. But yeah, it's about a guild of spies and assassins, and one of their own is the female main character, and somebody's trying to kill her within the guild, and so she's trying to figure that out with the help of another mercenary from the guild and the guy that she was running a honey trap on.
So does it suffer from the common dark romance issue where the characters are too stupid to live, or was it well written?
I think it's well written. It does, it has a lot of the same tropes as dark romance, right? It's what
it is.
Yeah.
It's not the tropes that's the issue. It's when they write the characters so insufferable. It's like they'd have gotten hit by a bus because they're just that stupid.
No, this particular author, her name is Tate James, and one of the things that I really like about her is that her characters are actually like reasonably competent people. They have reasonable reasons for the decisions that they make, and they're not just dumb. So
absolutely.
And her in this particular series, all three of the characters are like, these high level like spy assassin, badasses. And so like they are not going to make the kind of stupid mistakes that that you would see in some of the like you said, the too stupid to live problems. So and in fact they don't. They, they're not healthy people. Let's put it that way.
Dark romance, no?
Yeah, it is dark romance, but they are fully aware that they are not healthy people, and they seem to be fine with that. So it works out well.
I do
they know
enjoy
who they are, and
that's right.
I do enjoy
the
various book talk type stuff where the character and the author are speaking, and it's like the therapy session. Like, no, that's not healthy. Or the author or whatever, like where they do those bits, they're hilarious.
Yeah.
Is that considered? Would you consider that speculative fiction, or is it just random? It's just straight dark romance.
That's a good question. It's probably just contemporary dark romance because it's set in modern day. There's no real speculative elements to it, other than the postulation of this mysterious, all-powerful mercenary guild that can do all these things. Knows about like that. There is hand wavium at play in like when one of the characters is like a master hacker, and so the author doesn't go into a lot of technical detail as to how this individual gets the information that he gets. He just gets it, So if you call that speculative, then fine, but otherwise,
there's a reason people do that. Like, on the one hand, if the author actually knows how to do that, they're not going to write it because they don't want to teach other people how to do the thing.
And it could interrupt the flow of the story and the pacing.
Right. I mean, even if they know, there's reasons not to include that. I know EOD authors that were EOD that won't write the scene to the level of detail someone could recreate it, even though they have the knowledge for reasons, right? Like, so I don't necessarily assume not giving all the details is inherently a bad thing.
Yeah.
So
and in this particular genre, like, it's not required, right? We just need to know enough to know that this guy is good and he can do what he needs to do to play his role and take care of the heroine. And
so I learned when I was doing some editing exchanges when I first started writing that very issue that you have to, when you do editing, you have to know what your readers will care about, and that varies by genre. Like a lot of the military romance, because they asked me to edit it because I was in the Army, and so I'm like giving them a serious breakdown. Like, no, this is not the weapon they'd use. This is not how the uniform would look. Like, I broke it all down. Like, the readers don't care about this part. Like, they don't. that part doesn't matter. And I'm like, well, what did you ask me to edit this for? That's what I know.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because a lot of military romance readers, again, it depends on who the romance is written for, right? If it's written for guys, if it's men's military romance, then those details, and maybe I'm sexist for saying this, but this is my observation, those details seem to matter more if it's written for guys, right? If it's written for women, they don't, a lot of the authors and editors don't seem to care as much, which is fine until you have a woman like myself who is both a fan of romance and a military officer. And then if it's too egregious, it will in fact throw me out of the story, which is one reason why honestly I don't read a lot of military romance, but when I do find a good one where the details are correct, like, I love it. You know what I mean? So
and you can get away with that. You could get away with that a little bit more when you throw fantasy or sci-fi into it, because you can, well, that's not how they do it here, but maybe in the future or in this fantasy world.
Right.
Because magic.
Right. Or other reasons. So do you think, so I noticed a trend in a lot of romances, they're not as big on the details. Whereas sci-fi, they want a lot of details. Do you think it's a genre that cares about those details, or do you think it's a gendered thing?
I think it's the genre, but as we've discussed romance itself is inherently gendered in its audience, right? Traditional romance is written for a largely female audience, okay? And the things that they care about most are going to be those specific romance tropes, right? The central question is, are these people going to get together or aren't they? And for women who like to read romance, part of the drama of the story needs to come from conflict within the relationship, in finding the answer to that question. Are they going to get together or aren't they? Whereas with men's romance, and a person who's really knowledgeable about this is actually Heather Hollow, Edie Skye.
She's amazing.
Yeah, she's fantastic. She's like me, right? Like she reads women's romance and men's romance, and she writes largely men's romance, but she's also starting to write women's romance too. But so for a traditional, largely female romance audience, that a lot of the story conflict needs to come from within that question of, are they going to get together or aren't they going to get together? Men's romance, the central question is almost never, are they going to get together or aren't they going to get together? Because it's obvious that they're together relatively quickly in the story, or the thing that's keeping them apart is not within the relationship. The drama has to come from outside the relationship.
Interesting.
Male readers want to have the conflict be outside the relationship, and the relationship itself be a strong, united front against it. And you can see that in Edie's work, right, which is very popular, the Titan Mage series. You have her main character who, what's his name, Locke, right? He's sorry, this is all on the fly. He basically gets isekai'd into this Magitech world with giant robots and airships, and he becomes part of this airship crew, and he starts a romantic relationship with the other members of the crew, all of whom are female, and their relationship is beautiful and healthy, like from day one. It's like, hey, you want to get together? Let's do this thing. All right, let's be together. All right, yeah, you're cool. We're all having a good time here, and we're all a team, and they all work together as a team. And that's something that like really appeals to that men's adventure audience. Whereas for a female romance reader, the romance is more about overcoming the obstacles inherent in the relationship to get together.
So I will say that if you want to check out Edie Skye's or H.P. Hollow, she writes as both for sci-fi and she doesn't hide that it's her pen name, so I'm not outing anybody. But or for her harem lit or men's adventure romance, however you want to classify it. We have interviewed her about both of those in both of those cases, and I wrote a review of the Titan Mage series for Upstream Review, so you can check that out. It was a little awkward because she was my introduction into the whole men's romance thing. Yeah. And so when it gets to the naughty bits, I'm like, ooh, Heather, I know this lady. And so that was a little weird. I think I like not knowing the authors of those kinds of books when I read.
And she writes spicy stuff. It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
And what else is cool about her is her husband is Jacob is single-handedly bringing the bow tie back, which I did.
Yeah. So I think my favorite thing about Heather and Jacob as a couple are her dedications to him in the Titan Mage books, where she thanks him for the air quotes research.
My favorite is we've interviewed them about their stuff together, and she seems to like we keep a count. Like we have people that have watched them, and they're like keeping count of how often she can make him blush during the episode.
Oh my gosh.
That is almost like her stated goal. It is hilarious and almost it seems like we just sit back and watch because it's freaking adorable.
It is adorable. Yeah, no, they're a great couple. I adore them. They're wonderful people. Her newest pen name is Arcadia Skye, and that's her female oriented dark
Skye with an E,
reverse harem romance. So
is it Skye with an E, just like the Edie Skye?
Yes, yeah, same last name as Edie Skye, but it's Arcadia Skye. And it is dark. I read an early copy of it. It is very dark. There are monsters.
Speculative fiction?
It is fantasy. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
interview about that then. Okay.
It's spicy. Real spicy.
Even just the censored snippets that she's put online are like, Okay, that is for a very
Okay.
specific audience.
Uh-huh.
We would have to caveat in the beginning and do like we did with the all of the romance we've ever done, where we dance around what's on the pages. Because we try to be broad with the podcast. Like we want to, if you like speculative fiction of any shade, we want to talk to you. Because I get nerdy over all of it. But I think some of that is just with my age. I didn't grow up with the Kindle, so I had to read everything because, you know, the small town library, I ran out of books, and so I had to read things outside of what I'd prefer because it was there. So I don't know if younger readers are as widely, I don't say widely read as in like they're not reading a lot, but they're not reading as much outside of their genres. I don't think so.
Broadly read, maybe?
Yeah, I'm not trying to be derogatory, because once you find what you like, if you can find more of it, rock it. I just didn't have that option. So I did read a lot of books, including romance and biographies that were boring, but they were there. And like,
I'm right there with you, man. I was the exact same way.
And so I do wonder
on the person, because avid readers do have a tendency to have a fairly broad base, but you will get those who say this is my genre and it's this or bust. And I think it's more of a person to person thing versus anything else.
Sure.
I mean, when we got really bored, we read the library or the Encyclopedia Britannica, because we bought some from a door-to-door guy at one point.
Yeah. And I loved Encyclopedia Britannica.
We had some pretty cool pictures, I will say that.
Yeah.
Leave it to the Grunt to talk about the pretty pictures in the book. Okay. All right. So we are civilized human beings here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. We are no longer knuckle dragging troglodytes. So coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
No, thank you. I am a sugar-free Red Bull girl through and through.
Okay.
My favorite variety of sugar-free Red Bull today, now this does change relatively rapidly, is the new peach flavor sugar-free Red Bull. It started off as the summer special edition last summer, and it was so good. They brought it back as a permanent flavor, and I'm super excited about it. But I always end up going back to my old standby in the light blue can.
So you're talking about energy drinks, which you get a kick out of this. I was actually talking to my neurologist today because I had an appointment, and he was telling me you could tell when somebody served in the GWAT by what the energy drink of choice was, because they're involved.
Sugar-free orange Rip It, obviously.
So when I was there, everything was Red Bull. Rip It came as we were leaving in 2005.
Yeah.
And so everything was Red Bull or the Gatorade powdered mixes that you could add to your water. And then later they got more and more options. And then it was what was available based on region you were at, because certain regions had different drinks based on weight.
My deployment energy drink was the sugar-free orange Rip It. More often than not. There was another kind. It wasn't the pomegranate flavor, but there was another kind that we could only get in Baghdad that I loved. And every time we'd go to Baghdad, we'd like load up and, you know, bring it back with us.
For some reason, the Red Bull, like it I don't know, it upset my stomach, so I never got into the Red Bull. So we just did the Folgers dip is when we needed to stay away. Which I still can't look at instant coffee the same way again.
I bet you can't.
I'm just like, nope, I'll pass. I didn't understand. I grew up with my great uncle was one of the Frozen Chosen, and they got caught when they retreated. He got caught behind enemy lines, and it was him and a bunch of other farmers from Indiana. They got left behind when the Marines pulled back. So they just built an igloo because they're from Indiana, so they know that stuff. And they waited for relief. And when the Army Air Corps was dropping them supplies, because they were behind enemy lines for like a week, for whatever reason, what was it? Tootsie Rolls were about the only thing that landed near them because of the wind. The rest of it ended up landing in the Chinese line. So they lived on Tootsie Rolls and melted snow for a week. And so he said he never was able to eat Tootsie Rolls again.
Yeah. Nope.
He couldn't even have them in the house. He's like, nope, I'm never again. So I didn't understand that when he told me the first time. But after a year of the Folgers dip, I'm like, I get it now, Uncle. I get it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. But anyway, all right. So we mentioned that what you finished reading and what you're reading now. Are you looking forward to anything? And then we'll move on to talk about your book.
Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to a lot of things. We mentioned Shami Stovall earlier. She's got a book coming out this year called 1/5 Dragon from Baen Books. I believe it's her first Baen title. And I'm super stoked to read that one because I've loved everything that she's ever read. or that she's ever written, that I've read. I have not yet read her signature series, her Frith Chronicles. I have that one on audiobook, and I am it's in the queue, but I'm kind of waiting to listen to that one with my kiddo because it's YA appropriate.
Okay.
And then so yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to the next installment in her urban fantasy series, which is, I don't know what the next, I don't know if she's released the next title, but it's the time marked Warlock series, the Chronos Chronicles or something like that. So
I
yeah,
expect the Shammy interview is in April, which means it'll be probably May. It'll air, generally speaking, and it's Nightmare Arcanist that she wanted to talk about.
Oh yeah, that's part of her Frith Chronicles. So
Okay.
yeah, that's I'm really looking forward to digging into that one. When we get ready.
And when we have good guests that, because sometimes you get authors that just public speaking is hard, and I get that. Like we had to learn how to do that because we've been so many interviews. But when you get people that can talk freely, it's like, oh, you've got other series. Let's have you back, and we can spread it. So I have no problem having authors back to talk about their mini series. All right. So before we air this commercial, Jana, what are you looking forward to, and what are you reading at the moment?
Oh gosh, we're asking these questions. Let's see, what am I reading at the moment? So at the moment, I'm putting together an anthology. So all of my reading is getting edits done for the anthology. So there's been a whole lot of that. But I just finished a reread of the Alana Andrews, Kate Daniels series because that's one of those. It's a big comfort read. Yeah. And it was such a busy beginning to the year that I'm like, I need to read something. I'm jonesing for a read that just works for me. And I know it's all going to end up okay. But it's all the characters that I want. So I went back and I reread all 10 of the books in less than 2 weeks, because it was just that thing. Okay, now I'm going to read the next one. My husband's like, "Are you rereading that again?" It's like, you shut up. You're reading Rex Stout for the who knows how manyth times. So
right,
I can read my urban fantasy anytime that I want. Thank you very much. He's reading that and some submarine book that Michael DeFalco, I think is the name. But anyway, so it's a thriller and he's having a good time. So I just finished those, and I'm doing a read for a friend of the show, Melissa McShane. She's got a new series coming together, and so I'm getting the second book on that one read, and I'm looking forward to that series coming out because it's really, really cool. It's a world where our world and another world, a fantasy world, bumped into each other for just a few seconds, and then they separated again, and it's called the swap because in those few seconds, some stuff that is supposed to be here went there, and some of the stuff that was there came here. And so this series takes place like 51 years after the swap. So we have this integrated urban fantasy world, and we meet Peter Blythe, who is a private eye, and his Griffin partner. So it's kind of Spencer for hire if your partner was Griffin. And it is so much fun, and I can't wait for her to put those out because she's on like book 4, I believe. And they are just such a kick. So that's something that I'm looking forward to. I'm really excited to see that one come out.
That's another thing that I'm really looking forward to too, JR, is Melissa Olthoff's second book in her Griffin Core series. Yeah. So that comes out in July. It's called Tempered by Fire. And I've read the manuscript of it, and the manuscript is fantastic.
I'm jealous because she's been posting about it. It's like,
I know.
The first one was so good.
The second one it's gutty though, man. It's like she's gonna get you right here. Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Okay,
so I actually have that on the list when I get some money, get some credits. Unfortunately, when you have to read with your ears, it can be an expensive habit. I can get readers' copies because I write for Upstream Reviews. They don't do that for audiobook. So when I do my reviews, I bought every one of my books, which means it's a little pricey.
Yeah. The audiobook is fantastic. I listened to it with my kiddo, who also prefers to read with her ears. She's pretty dyslexic, and so audiobooks are her jam. But we listened to it on a road trip, and she was so invested in it. So yeah, fantastic. Nora Safyan is the name of Melissa's narrator, the voice actress who performed Rise from Ruin, and it's It's so good. She's so good. So highly recommended.
Okay. So I've been reading because I realized that Melissa McShane has 9 books out in her War Master series, and I'd fallen behind. I wrote reviews for the first 3, so which means I needed to read book 4, and I realized I didn't remember the first 3. So of course I started over again. I've done that on a lot of series. If there's a gap, I end up like Terry Nixon's Empire of Bones. I've listened to it like a dozen times because every time he gets a new one, I'm like, okay, well, I got to start from book 1 again because TBI memory, right? And so I've started on book 1 on War Master. So I can get caught up to that series. I'm not sure how far she is with the audiobooks, but I know at least print and ebook, they're up to book 9, and she's editing book 10, the end of the series.
Oh, no, it's done. So she's all the print books and ebooks are released all the way through 9. Book 10 is in the can, and she just has to set the date for release there. I think it's the audiobook that's keeping book 10 from coming out, is that she's just waiting for her narrator, who is another really, really lovely narrator, to be able to finish book 10, and then it'll come out. And I think that's another, I want to say May. So it's coming soon, and book 10 will be the end of that series.
Are 1 through 9 out in audio? I know at least 1 through 6 because I have those.
Oh, 1 through 9 are all out.
I will say if you like lit RPG, game lit type books, that's a pretty fun one. That's also family friendly. You could read with your kid because I did read that one when we started it the first time with my youngest. And he was really into it. We got the first, I think, 6 books for him in print because he does not read with his ears. Then he realized I liked it and just wasn't cool anymore. So,
of course, that just takes all the fun out of it.
And then I really like Richard Fox's books. So when I saw you had a new one out, Thane's Gambit, I'm like, okay, after book 1, I'll pause. I'll read that one because I just got a handy new tablet that's like super big. So when it comes to reading, it's like takes large print to the nth degree for me, so I can work around my head injury. So I'm going to read that one because I want to write a review for it, but I'm looking forward to that one. Cool. So, all right, with that out of the way, speaking of Melissa McShane, she graciously agreed to sponsor this episode. And then when we come back, we are going to talk about Blood on the Sand by Kacey Ezell, which is totally a peaceful book. You're going to love it.
Absolutely.
All right, and with that.
For 5 years, Adarin has waited to get the call. The event when the system controlling her world grants her a class and appropriate skills to become an adventurer. When the system makes her a War Master, Adarin eagerly sets out on her first journey. The problem? Her class is useless. No one believes a War Master is anything but a joke. They aren't strong fighters, they have no magic, and they don't have powerful skills. But Adarin hasn't waited all these years to give up now. With the help of a young man from another world, she's going to prove this War Master can do anything.
War Master 1, Dungeon Spiteful, by Melissa McShane.
All right, thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. I will say that it is
really good.
It's unique in that a lot of times the isekai is told from the perspective of the person that comes from Earth. This is an isekai novel where he's this. I don't want to say he's a secondary character, but he's not the point of view character.
Yeah,
which is a fun change because now we get to look at all the stuff that we do on Earth that we think nothing of, and like look at it from outside perspective, and you realize how weird some of it is if you don't understand the context, and it's kind of fun. All right, so before we start talking about Blood on the Sand, we're going to get into that by asking you a little bit of the author questions that we like to ask all of our authors who are also veterans. So you mentioned earlier that you did serve in the U.S. Air Force, and we ask you this every time because not everyone listens to every episode, but
that's okay.
Do you feel like your time in the Air Force has affected the way you tell stories?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely it has. Part of it is just the focus that my tagline is that I write emotionally charged adventure, fantasy, and science fiction. And the reason that I do it that way is because the things that are most compelling about stories to me are always the interactions between the characters, right? And when I think about like, a group operating together, or, a group with a shared goal, an adventuring party, a crew, a team, whatever, all of those, all of my ideals for that were not only informed, but also like really forged by my the way the military raised me, right? Like I flew a crew aircraft. I'm used to operating as an aircraft commander, which means that while I'm ultimately in charge, if my flight engineer says stop down, I'm stopping down because I'm going to hit something if I don't, you know what I mean? So it's like those nuances of how do you work very closely with your teammates? How do you create a healthy dynamic with people who have different areas of expertise and different backgrounds or different subject matter knowledge. Those are all things that go into the relationships that I write and create in my work, for sure.
And you have a slightly different experience than just a standard military person or standard Air Force officer, in that you went to one of the military academies. And so in addition to all of the normal, stuff that a pilot has to know about attention to detail, you spent 4 years where like they grilled the crap out of you if you couldn't tell them what was on the menu 3 weeks from now, kind of thing.
Well, it wasn't 3 weeks from now, but yeah, that day.
And I do think that gives you a slightly different perspective in addition to the normal, just what the rank and file gets.
Well, it certainly gives me a perspective on stories about academy settings, right?
Absolutely.
We were talking earlier about Melissa Altoff's Rise from Ruin, and one of the things that Melissa did very well is she represented the focus of the training that one gets at a military academy very, very well. Melissa's not an academy grad, but her husband is, and I could tell that she had talked extensively with him and asked him a lot of questions, and she asked me a couple too, because my experience was different than his experience, but I'm a female and her main character is female, so sometimes that was relevant, but yeah, she, that was one of the reasons why I really, really enjoyed Rise from Ruin, is because it was a realistic military academy setting in this sort of post-apocalyptic fantasy world that she has.
But she went to it. Was it? If my memory serves, it was like Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Yeah. Is that like a junior military college or senior military college?
It's an aviation school, is what it is. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that was like the Merchant Marine Academy. It was like military school adjacent kind of thing, or no?
No. The Merchant Marine Academy is like a legitimate military academy. I mean, not that there's anything illegitimate about Embry-Riddle. It's a great
everything
school.
Else, yeah.
But the focus at Embry-Riddle is not military training, but it is aviation training, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, we separate our military schools or commissioning as you got the senior military academies, you got the federal academies, which is West Point, Annapolis, Colorado Springs, Air Force, or whatever. And then you've got the senior military academies like the Citadel, VMI, Virginia Tech, Corps of Cadets, Texas A&M Corps of Cadets, Norwich. There's a few others. Merchant Marine Academy follows under the Federal Service Academy. And then you've got junior military colleges where it's just a 2-year degree, but it's the same lived experience as the military full-time. And so when we're talking, when Kacey and I were talking, we were classifying the school, not, judging it by its merit. That's just military classifies it. So
correct.
So when you write your stories, given that you did all that time in the Air Force, do you feel like you draw on people you knew from when you served?
Maybe in the abstract, I will take turns of phrase, or I will take outlooks and attitudes from people that I knew. So far, I've not truly although I guess I have put Tuckerized people that I've known. But other than that, I would say for the most part, it's more about like really just pulling bits here and there of people that I've known and working them into the character to give the character kind of a more well-rounded vibe,
Absolutely.
And for our listening audience that might not know, what does it mean to Tuckerize somebody?
So a Tuckerization is it's when you name a character after a person in real life. It's usually done as a tribute, or sometimes as like at different conventions. Authors will auction off Tuckerizations for the charity auction. One of mine was in my in my Psychics at War series, the Psyche of War, in book 3, there's a gentleman who won a Tuckerization, and so I made him into a captain, helicopter pilot in Vietnam. And so it's a really fun way to, kind of raise money for a good cause, and to kind of tribute to the fans who are willing to, who love your work and kind of want to be a part of it. So.
And classically, when we first started with Tuckerizations, it was to redshirt them, and so very often it was had somebody that they won the right to come into your story and die in a gruesome way. Over the years, it's kind of modulated. I think there are still people who love to be Tuckerized in the classic. Yes, put me in your story and kill me in a gruesome way. Yeah. But you also get a lot who just want to be part of the story, and they're just happy to be there. But sometimes we forget that not all of our listeners know these terms, so I try to point it out.
Yeah, I actually draw a distinction between the two. So, like, if you're going to be red-shirted, you're guaranteed to die in my book. But if you go to the trouble, especially if you purchase a Tuckerization in a charity auction, I'm going to make you a significant character in the book. Your actions are going to have impact to the plot of the story. So
it's always funny when you go to redshirt someone and then the plot doesn't quite work how you want it and they just won't die. I've had that happen a couple times.
I've had to rename people for that reason.
I just let them ride. I didn't go with it. I've actually had someone, because I told them that they could kill me, but I was like very specific. It was when we first started writing. Chris Kennedy did it. So to get even with me, because he thought I was giving him too many details, he had me have a toilet fall on my head when I was in a place of ill repute in one of his novels.
Oh my.
But it was before I even got to meet the company. So I didn't even get to die happy, shall we say. I'm like, you son of a biscuit eater, I approve.
That's funny. That is funny.
So, okay. So, yeah, he's snarky like that, which is why we like him. So we've talked about how it affects the way you tell stories. The last question before we start talking about the book. Do you think your experience in the military affects the way you engage with content as a reader, as a consumer?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was in the military long enough that it's the majority of my adult life at this point, right? So I'm never not going to read something as a military officer or as a pilot, right? Like those are so much a part of my identity and my outlook on things that it would be impossible for me to separate that. And going back to what I said before about like team dynamics, when I read about a healthy team dynamic, then the military officer in me, the aircraft commander in me approves. It's like, okay, yeah, these people work well together. When they don't communicate well, it's like, it bothers me, not necessarily in a way that it like throws me out of the story, because maybe that's the intent of the author, right? But if their communication is bad and it messes things up, that makes sense to me, right? Because clear, concise, correct communication is so essential when you're trying to get something done.
Okay. Jana has some questions for you while I throw this cover up, which is a glorious cover, by the way.
Isn't it beautiful? Sam Kennedy is the artist, and he is such a genius. He did the cover for Magelight book 1 as well.
Any relation to Chris?
No relation. No relation. So.
All right, Danny, your favorite question as mom, the podcast mom.
I have my favorite question as well. Now I'm going to do this in the opposite order because the first one makes more sense now. So this is book 2 in the Magelight series. So what is the elevator pitch for this one? What are we getting into when we jump feet, head, whichever body part first into the book?
Into book 2?
Yes.
Okay. So Alis and her 3 protectors have reached a sort of uneasy peace after the events of book 1, but there are still people after them. So they take off on a journey down to the fabled cities of the South, which is the one place that her warrior, Romic, doesn't want to go because of his past. And yet, here they are. So they will have to, right? They'll have to face the kind of the shadows of those of his past as an Arita fighter, and get drawn into the politics and underworld of the great city of Xandri, queen of the arena cities in the Empire. So.
Ooh. I do love it when you force people to go exactly where they don't want to go. That's where interesting things happen.
So the longer version of that story is that the reason he doesn't want to go there is because he was enslaved as an arena fighter there, and he was very famous. He was so famous he earned his freedom, and that's why he was able to leave. But he never wanted to go back. But now he's got to go back.
So. That's justifiable. I don't know that. Yeah, that's the worst kind of homecoming.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So the other question, the mom question, is what kind of content are we looking at? You know, what would it be if we were using like the movie ratings? Is this one that we can share with our young daughters, or should we maybe make them wait for a couple of years before they dive in?
So, as always, with all of my books, I always tell parents, you read it first and decide, because you know your kid way better than I do. Totally. From on a movie rating scale, I would call this a PG-13 for violence. There is no explicit sex. There is a lot of violence. There is quite a bit of blood, some of it on sand.
Yeah, so going into an arena.
That's right. So there's also language, you know, because I swear like I spent 23 years in the military, and so do my characters. So, but yeah, I would call it PG-13 for violence mostly, and plenty of well, some sexual innuendo, kind of joking type things, but no explicit sex on the page.
Do you have at least one line in there? Are you not entertained, since you've got Gladiator vibes?
Oh, no, I don't have that, but I do have a point at which one of the heroes grabs the heroine and lays a fat kiss on her for the entertainment of the crowd, who goes wild at the sight of it. So
for the value.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is important. It's like the kiss cam at sports. Same
that's right.
kind of vibes
that's
there.
Right.
It's a different kind of sport. It's still the kiss cam.
That's right.
As long as the kiss cam ain't catching people married to the wrong people, not in the kiss cam.
So, no, it's fine. She's married to all three of them. It's fine.
It's all good.
So is that something in this universe? We talked about it last time, and I didn't think to ask.
Yeah.
In some universes, it's you know, everybody's having these plural marriages, either reverse harem or harems is kind of how they're called. In others, it's the you know, the select few that have the multiple partners. In your world, is it normal that they have the multiple partners? Or are they unique in this?
They're not unique, but they are very unusual in this. So the way that it works is that the bond between sorcerer or sorceress and their protector is as legally binding as a marriage. And most of the time that bond is based on it. Well, always it's based on an emotional connection. Most of the time that emotional connection is a romantic one, which is why, you know, the bond is legally recognized as a marriage. But in fact, in this book, in Blood on the Sand, I have a pair of side characters that we get to meet and spend a lot of time with they're actually twin brothers, and one is a sorcerer and the other one is his protector. So they're obviously not married to each other because they're
not from Alabama,
right?
Oh.
Right, but
take it there.
But which, by the way, is kind of rude, because honestly, I love Alabama. So I'm just going to go on record and say that was rude, JR. But but anyway, but in book one, Alis accidentally binds all three of these guys to her. So legally, all three of them are her husbands, even though, like, that's not usually done. It's not unheard of. There are like stories of powerful mages in the past having multiple protectors and, you know, having like a legally recognized relationship, you know, with them. But it hasn't, it's kind of like, that was a long time ago. You know what I mean? Like, right. It hasn't been done in a really, really long time, but here she is. And so yeah, so she's legally all three of them are functionally her husbands. So
Okay. So who is the point of view character? Is it a third person where we get to see in all of their heads, or are we just seeing through her head?
Yeah, so I tell the story through third person limited and sometimes third person close point of view. But yeah, I rotate between all three of them, or all four of them, I should say.
Okay. Is this like a hero's journey quest kind of story, or is this more like political intrigue? Like what kind of, if we're trying to categorize this outside of just the basic fantasy and such,
Yeah.
Just as far as organization, so people kind of know what kind of story they're getting.
So this one is on the surface kind of a side quest to the main arc until you kind of get to the end, and then you see that, oh, actually what this is in the main meta arc of the 4-book series, actually what this is basically act 2 of the overall meta arc, where we have our heroes developing, getting closer, working together as a team, becoming more confident in their skills and in their relationship with each other. And then there are some reveals that all of a sudden make you realize that there's something bigger going on that we will explore further in book 3 and 4.
So, and I do like the tagline you have, which I have been told it is on the cover, which I can't see, but it is also on your description on where the places where the book is sold. But it's the "choices have consequences" tagline,
yes.
because so often in speculative fiction, they do the thing and then it's almost episodic where it resets and whatever they did has no consequences. It doesn't matter, and some people prefer that. I'm not digging that as a plot style. I love it when what they do matters, because it's like, well, if I'm going to read it, I want to know that it mattered, right? Like, and so knowing that what happens makes a difference in the plot is cool. And I like that you signaled that, in fact, is the case with this series, right? Like that everything plays on itself going forward.
Right. Well, I tried to do that. A good friend of mine and sort of a mentor, I guess, of mine is author Sarah Cannon. She writes YA fantasy and adult fantasy paranormal stuff. She's fantastic. But she has a YouTube channel here and she talks a lot about writing and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that she has said multiple times is that, different types of series exist and they have different goals, right? An episodic series, like a great example of an episodic series would be like, the Spencer novels, or, a lot of like detective fiction where it's the same hero, with the same supporting cast, and each individual story is different. Each individual story, but the hero doesn't change appreciably. I mean, maybe over time a little bit he does,
but not significantly.
But not significantly, right? There's not a lot of significant character growth necessarily in each individual book. But then there's also the series where that's not the case, right? Where, with each book, things happen to the characters and the characters grow and develop. And Aelis's growth and development was really like the main theme of book 1, where she went from being this, kind of broken, humiliated, weak sorceress with all the confidence of a wet dish rag to actually someone pretty powerful and someone who, could stand up and take ownership of her choices and the consequences of her actions. And so with the beginning of book 2, I couldn't have her go back to being the wet dish rag. Now that's not to say that her progress is always linear, because that's not realistic either, right? Everybody backslides sometimes, but it's more often a case of like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, rather than, continuously forward, or go forward and then start all the way back over, and then go forward and then start all the way back over. So in Blood on the Sand, as it opens, she still has doubts. She still has confidence issues. And there are still things that she's got to work through, but she's better. She's better than she was at the beginning of book 1. She's stronger. She believes in herself just a little bit more. And we're going to continue that progression. And similar progression happens for the guys too. Now the guys start off in a better place. They're older than she is. They have more experience than she is. All 3 of them are experts in their field. So they already have, like, they're confident about what they can do. What they're not confident in is their relationships, right? Like, their connections and stuff. So,
well, I remember this came up in, and we, like I said, we'll link to the interview where we talked about Magelight, but one of the things you talked about in all four of them is their origin stories were kind of bleak. So it was almost like overcoming their circumstances was part of their arc in the first book. And so if you didn't have them start that way, they would have been a Mary Sue or Marty Sue, I guess, for the guys, because you can't have someone started broken and then not show that. Otherwise, it feels like you're cheating, I think.
Right. Yeah, sure. And it's kind of fun too, because one of the things that I wanted to do with Blood on the Sand is, we're really digging into Romic's backstory here, because we're going to the place that shaped him. We're going to the first place he ever killed anybody, the first place he ever fought anybody, we're going to the place that really made him fundamentally into the warrior that he is. And we get to see a lot of those things and how he feels about those things. So it's a continuation of his healing arc from, feeling like he's alone, feeling like, hope is a lie. And there's never anyone in his corner to, okay, now he has people in his corner, but he still has to go back and face the ghosts of his past. And even though he doesn't really want to, he finds himself there in that city, well, really on the road to the city, and is like, well, here we go. So that was a lot of, I don't want to say fun, but it was a good journey to take, and it was interesting to explore and kind of get in his head about that kind of stuff.
So it was more satisfying than fun to be able to
sure.
Was there anything, like, I know generally speaking you generally tend to kind of know where you're going with the story when you write, but a story like this, I almost feel like when you're talking about an ensemble cast, I don't see how you write that and don't end up with surprises when you're writing dialogue that change the course of stories. So was there anything about this book that surprised you from what you originally had planned?
Yeah. So, excuse me. Sorry. There's actually kind of a whole side plot that happens once they get to the city of Xandrine that features Vil. That all kind of came out of me thinking, okay, well, here's a guy who's, he's a master thief. He's a professional. He's known in this sort of thieves underworld. And he's notorious enough that he's going to a new city, and all of these cities have organized crime underworlds, right? Because that's a thing that tends to happen in large population centers, especially at this technological level, right? So I was, it made sense to me that he would want to, there would be some niceties to observe, right? And so what started with me just saying, okay, well, shoot, I probably need to have him, go and observe the forms with someone, turned into this whole side plot that actually ended up really tying nicely into the end that I did have planned. And so it was very serendipitous that it worked out that way.
Okay. Do you obviously all of your babies are your favorite and you love them all equally, but do you have a favorite among the favorites?
Between the guys?
Sure. I was going to say of all your characters, but between the guys, start with.
Well, I mean, it's not really fair to contrast Alis with the guys, right? Because there's only one of her and three of them. Between the guys, I do love them all. And each one of them is, I've said this before, but each one of them is sort of an aspect of my husband's personality because he's amazing and super hot and I love him. But my favorite is Vil, is the knife in the dark character, the career criminal, the one who's ruthless and only cares about the people he cares about, and everyone else can burn in a fire for all he cares. So probably because I read too much dark romance. So
we'll go with it.
Yeah. He's such an intense. I mean, all of them are intense, really, but yeah, he's a very intense character, and he's kind of my favorite. So
okay.
Although with this book, like I said, I introduced these two side characters, Tyrus and Acton, who are twin brothers. Acton is a sorcerer; he's a Bellator, and Tyrus is his Aegeon, his protector. And I have to admit, I kind of fell in love with Acton when Tony Weisskopf, who did the majority of the edits, well, all of the edits for this book, when she and I were sitting there at DragonCon going over her edits, she, I asked her, I was like, "What did you like Acton?" And she was like, "Yeah, he's like John Barrowman." And I realized, holy shit, she's right. he's exactly like this kind of like,
right.
Very somewhat flamboyant, kind of pansexual, but also like really funny and snarky, but also points that snark at himself about half the time, So yeah, I adored Acton. I did not plan for him to turn out like John Barrowman, but that's just who he decided he was.
We love a little self-depreciation.
Yeah.
So we mentioned some of the side characters. Do you have a favorite side character from the ones that you introduced outside of the main 4?
Yeah, probably Acton is my favorite for sure.
So you mentioned that you said there's 4 novels. Is that the end of the series? Is it going to be a 4-book arc, or is it?
So the main, this current arc is 4 books long. I do have thoughts about a spin-off series after that.
Okay.
I don't have a contract for a spin-off series after that. So if that sounds interesting to you, please buy my books so that Tony will give me a contract.
Yep, because as much as we don't like to admit it, sometimes the money does kind of nudge us in the direction that we might take things.
Absolutely it does.
Okay. Are you thinking that they're going to stay in the same sort of geographic kingdom region, or are you going to explore as the series goes on the larger world? Because right now you've kind of got them kind of contained a little bit.
They will probably remain within the bounds of the current empire for this 4-book series, but after that, all bets are off.
Now, this is a fantasy book, and everybody that loves fantasy, we all like, I'm just going to paint with a broad brush. We love maps. Maps are cool. Cartography is fun. So does this book come with a map? Because I know it's hardcover through Baen. Does it get a map?
It does. It does.
We have a map.
And it is what I specifically wanted was, so Magelight had a map that showed just the area where the characters are traveling. And for Blood on the Sand, it's the same map zoomed out. So the artist is Rhys Davies. He's an incredible cartographic artist. He makes these beautiful maps. And so kind of my intent is that with every book, we'll get a little bit larger view of the world, a little more zoomed out. So we'll see. It may not work out that way, but that was the original intent.
Okay. Because you're focused right now on the Empire Kingdom, do you know what the rest of the world looks like in your head, or have you only narrowed it down to the focus on?
I know what some parts look like.
Now, some authors, when they make the maps, they kind of just superimpose over Earth, and then they put their fantasy world on it because it's easy, because you got the maps, the rivers that flow the right direction, all the geography works because obviously it's real. Did you do that, or did you start with something completely second world?
Nope, I started completely second world.
Okay. Do you foresee them changing? Like right now it's sword sorcery. Do you foresee them adding like technological advances as a series arc, using like Magitech type deals, or do you think you're going to stay kind of at the level of tech and magic that you're at for the universe?
Roughly, mostly at the level that we're at. However, one of the subplots that I explored in Magelight, and that I allude to but don't really get much of in Blood on the Sand, but it will come up again later in the series, is kind of the rediscovery of ancient magic, where they knew more, and there was more of an integration between magic and objects, right? So the example would be, all 3 of the guys have magical weapons that were created by an artificer, like way back when, generations ago. And so as the series goes on, we're going to learn more about what that entails and how that can be utilized for various purposes, both benign and nefarious. So it, largely the same level of technology, but maybe with just a little bit more integration between magic and objects, if that makes sense.
Okay, now your protectors are using like traditional. If we're looking at D&D party, they're doing the sword and the bow and the cool fun stuff. So did you buy? I want to say props. Did you buy actual product to test to make sure balance works to have fun with when you were writing? Some authors do that, and that's how. Were you one of those who bought a sword so you could swing it around before you write the sword fight?
No, I did not buy one. I have a Gladius that I have had for years.
It's tax deductible.
And I did swing that around a little bit. But I have, I do not own a bow. And I don't know, maybe I should, because that'd be fun to play with. What I did do, though, I will say is I extensively read, Bane has a resource called The Book of Swords by Hank Reinhardt, Tony Weisskopf's late husband. And I read extensively through that for the specifically the arena scenes where, it's very sword action heavy. And that was an incredible resource. Yeah, really useful.
Okay. Was there anything writing the combat that was surprising to you when you were writing it that with the research? Because I know, when we grow up with modern stuff, sometimes when we look back at the old stuff, it can be surprising. What was that kind of what you expected from your academic training, or did you learn anything in the preparation for these fight scenes?
I mean, I learned, I think I went into it expecting not to know much, right? So I kind of, what I learned wasn't unexpected because I didn't have much knowledge about sword combat going into it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was the old expression. It's not what you don't know that's the problem. It's what you think you know that just ain't so.
Right.
You went into knowing you didn't know. That makes it a little easier.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we don't want spoilers, obviously, which makes it a little bit hard sometimes because we kind of dance around some issues because we want people to read the books, right? Obviously, we love reading, so we don't want to give people a reason never to read a book. Was there anything we didn't ask you about this series that you think, or this specific book in the series, that you think people need to know that we didn't ask?
No, I just like Magelight. This book too is also a bit of a tribute from me to, a love letter from me to fantasy adventure gaming. So this is the continuation of that, right? This is that same adventure party having adventures in a different milieu, and they end up, in arena combat on the sand, and there will always be blood on the sand. It's just a question of whose. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, that is always a good thing. Now, we made that introduction. The reason we're doing this as a standalone is because it is Trad Pub, and sometimes you might not be able to read them in order. I still think it's a war crime if you don't read them in order, but some people do it. Would this, if they hadn't read Magelight standalone, or did you break the Trad Pub convention and you make it so they need to read book one?
No, you could read this as a standalone. I specifically had some conversations happen at the beginning of the book that kind of recap the events of Magelight in an organic way, where you have the characters telling other characters why they're all here together. And one of my beta readers actually said, "Hey, you did a really good job of because she had not read Magelight. She's like, I got into the story anyway. I know why there are these conflicts between these characters based on how you set up the beginning. So yeah, you could read this one without having read Magelight, but you should definitely read Magelight because
I still think it's a war crime to read them out of order.
Yeah.
Book, read it picky. Yeah. All right. So as we bring this to a close, and we're going to ask you obviously for your socials in a minute, but you mentioned in the pre-show that you have a course you're going to be teaching. You want to tell us about that before we wrap this up?
Sure. Yeah. So I have been writing professionally since, I had my first pro sale in 2010. And, since about the time that I started writing professionally, I've talked with people and I've experienced it myself where we all have creative blocks, right? Or we experience resistance where it's like, oh, I need to write the story. I'm excited to write the story. Why can't I sit down and write the story? And and there are the answer is, the truth is, there are a lot of reasons why that may be the case, right? But I've kind of made a study of this for myself and applied a lot of the tools and things that I learned as a officer and an aviator in the military, in terms of like mindset and resilience tools, and applying that to my creative life and kind of figuring out a way to, okay, when I'm experiencing resistance, how do I overcome it? Right? When I'm experiencing, if I'm feeling like I'm experiencing a creative block, how do I overcome it? And I've shared that with my friends. It occurred to me, or really it was the suggestion of a couple of friends of mine that was like, hey, this is stuff that people could really use. You should really teach this, right? So I did. I created a course. It's called Own Your Creative Fire. And it's about how to recognize and combat the resistance that we as creative people often feel when we're, working on something, especially something big, and how to use different tools to get past that and work through those blocks and just get back to creating with joy. So yeah, I sent you, we'll have links if you guys want to check that out.
For people that don't know, there are two ways we can do these kinds of courses, because there are other places that you can do courses as well on various topics. It's never been easier to teach yourself the cool things you're interested in, even if you don't have a college degree. Is this one of those ones where it's alive and they watch you lecturing or talking to them, or is it pre-recorded and they do it at their own pace?
So that's a really great question. It's the big course, Own Your Creative Fire, is a hybrid of both. I have a live kickoff call that starts the cohort, which starts, it'll actually, this will be passed by then. But for the beginning of every cohort, I'll have a live kickoff call where I'll welcome everyone and kind of explain the course. And then the course material is pre-recorded and it will unlock a week at a time, right? So you can kind of go through it at your own pace. And then it culminates with some practical exercises where you'll actually create a creative work and share it in our private community that is, full of other students and alumni who've gone through the course, that are just there to celebrate and cheerlead you, and really help you feel supported and uplifted, in your creative work. That's the big course. And that one opens for enrollment, for a certain time, and then the cohort happens and then it opens again for enrollment. I can't give specific dates because I don't have them set yet. As of the time of recording. But I also, because that is such a big course, and it is at a price point that is not insignificant. I decided to also do a starter course that's basically like a mini version of the first part of the course, that is evergreen and you can join it at any time, and it is totally on your own pace. It takes about a week long too. So yeah, I have both of those options available. Yeah.
And if anybody of your cohort that go through your course publishes their first thing and they want to come and pimp their stuff, you give them our information, and
I will.
I love having people do their first interview with us, because we all started somewhere once and people gave us a chance. So it's always fun to pay it forward.
I will. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so this is the part, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right book. So do your part. It really does matter. I do have one quick question for you. Now, you can buy this because obviously we want people to know you can buy things outside of the Amazon ecosystem, which is why in the show notes we link to all the places. If people buy it outside of the traditional marketplaces and they buy it directly from Bain, which you can do, and the authors, when you buy from Bain, get more of a cut because you're not paying the third-party sort of, I don't know if brokerage fees are right, the overhead fee. If they buy it from Bain, are they able to review it there, or do they have to go to a different site to review it?
That is a good question. I don't know if the Bain website platform truly supports reviews. It might be worth going to. I know you can review it on Goodreads. Fable is another place where you can review books. It's a big book club community. But yeah, I don't think you can on Bain.
Okay. I will find the Fable book reviews because obviously everyone knows who Goodreads is. And I link to, where possible, the author's Goodreads page just so you can browse their other stuff. And if you didn't know, Goodreads, when you go to the individual books, will have a I want to buy it button. And when you click that, it goes to every place that it's for sale. And so that's why I link to it for the authors. I will look for the Fable book review place, and I will link that in the show notes as well as some of the books we talked about. And with that, if they wanted to find you online, Kacey, how might we do that?
Go to www.kaceyezell.net or .com. Either one works. That is my author website. All my books are there. My community is there. It's you can join for free to get my newsletter. And then if you felt like supporting me directly, you can join one of my paid tiers of the Dragon's Hoard, which is the name of my fan community. And you can get early access to my stuff and some bonus content, including spicy scenes that I did not include in Blood on the Sand, but I wrote as additional content. So,
and for those of you who don't know, her Dragon's Hoard operates a lot like Patreon. She's just hosting it herself. There are people that have issues with Patreon in that you give rights to certain access to your content. And for some people, the copyright rules over at Patreon just don't work for them for various reasons. And so I like that you have it independent of that. I'm all for independence in media. So
yeah, me too, especially, if I can build on my own land, so to speak.
Absolutely.
It just seemed to work better. And lest anyone question, I do have permission from the publisher to post early samples of work. So like right now I'm writing book 3 in this series, and I'll be posting chapters of my work in progress on my for my paid subscribers on my website.
So for that, I know some authors, when they're doing their prep for their books, they'll write like character sheets. I do as well. I kind of make them like they're a D&D character sheet because it has all the stats, so I'm consistent. Is that something you do when you write, and then that you then share?
I don't. I'll do kind of like a character profile, but I haven't shared them usually.
Okay.
Usually it's just the draft chapters, which they are early and they are raw. You know what you're getting, right? Like, so, but for people who like that early access, it's there. So.
And I have to cut through our stuff quicker than normal, dear listeners. So Jenna is linked in our link tree for the podcast, and you can find all of her stuff. But Opal Kingdom Press is the coolest place to be, and you can find all of her split personalities over there. And you can find us, dear listener, on our website, Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things: the BitChute, the Rumble, the YouTube, the TikTok, the Twitters. We've got our Spotify, our Discord, our Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. You can email us at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com for professional purposes only, people. Save the shenanigans from Stabby Stab over there on the Instagram, the Twitter, and the email. You can support the show by going to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section this is for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts, I can speak tonight, duly caffeinated. They will drink that coffee brand coffee until they get high on their own supply. And for Jana, that's not coffee because she doesn't have taste like I do. She drinks hot chocolate, but she swears it's good.
It is good. I also like hot chocolate.
And with that, thank you for spending. Link is in the show notes. Discount code podcast grunts. You get 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's a win-win. And with that, I would like to thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. And with that, I'm going to hit the end button. Wait for it.